Ryan Reynolds here for, I guess, my 100th Mint commercial. No, don't. I mean, honestly, when I started this, I thought I only have to do like 4 of these. I mean, it's unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month. How are there still people paying 2 or 3 times that much? I'm sorry, I shouldn't be victim blaming here. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/save. Whenever you're ready.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Forget the frustration of picking commerce platforms when you switch your business to Shopify, the global commerce platform that supercharges your selling wherever you sell. With Shopify, you'll harness the same intuitive features, trusted apps, and powerful analytics used by the world's leading brands. Sign up today for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/tech, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/tech.
ABC Thursday.
Welcome back.
Grey's Anatomy returns.
Why didn't you tell me you were pregnant?
The drama going down
Bungee jumping from the bridge, his cord snapped.
We need all hands on deck.
is unbelievable.
You think you're God's gift to this hospital?
You're just another doctor.
My relationship with Catherine is complicated.
I'm gonna sue you.
Your lawyers know where to find me.
You're unbelievable.
Grey's Anatomy. Season premiere Thursday, 10/9 Central on ABC. And stream on Hulu.
This series contains adult language and depictions of graphic violence. Listener discretion is advised. Okay, one more quick hit about the Satanic Panic. So last month, when I started researching these episodes, I came across something that I found really interesting and something that, at the same time, I can't believe I missed. Well, not really missed, but just never made the connection, never put 2 and 2 together. As I was reading up on the various stages of the Satanic Panic, I came across a few different articles that drew a straight line from that particular cultural phenomenon from 40 years ago to something much more current.
QAnon.
Satanic rituals, drinking children's blood, adrenochrome.
Where did they come from?
QAnon is the single greatest information operation in the history of humanity.
How responsible are they for the attack on the Capitol?
Should Q be classified as a domestic terrorism threat?
And where are they headed next?
They will excuse and encourage any amount of violence against their political enemies.
If you hadn't heard of QAnon before the pro-Trump insurrection, you definitely have by now.
Biden's not going to do jack shit because Biden's not getting in office.
The internet's fringiest fringe conspiracy.
That's right. The fringe conspiracy that's been embraced by millions around the world has its roots in the Satanic Panic. And I gotta tell you, the similarities are striking. Welcome back to The Devil Within. This is a bonus episode of Back to School, a history of the Satanic Panic. In October of 2017, the anonymous online alleged Washington insider named Q made their first post on the website 4chan. Q claimed to have Q-level government clearance and had access to all sorts of classified information about the Trump administration. So Q-level clearance grants a person access to top secret information. Essentially, all of our government secrets, battle plans, weaknesses on the home front, military postures towards friends and enemies alike, you name it, Q had access. Supposedly. And what did Q like to post about? Well, no one really knows for sure. At first, these Q drops, that's what Q's posts are called. These initial Q drops were about Hillary Clinton being arrested. No specifics as to why. But then the next drop was that she was detained, but not yet arrested. And these posts were so cryptic that followers were left trying to find clues to decipher them anywhere they looked.
There's a game aspect to it, and there's a lot of game theory involved in it.
Q, an unknown person who claims to have top secret government security clearance, leaves cryptic posts with code words and mysterious numbers across the internet, and then says, figure it out.
It's kind of like in those movies when you see someone who's trying to solve a crime have loads of different pieces of string drawn together. That's what these guys do, and they just by doing your own research, by structuring it that way, it ingrains the information on your brain much differently than if you just told something.
Everyone gets to be the hero, decoding all the new Q drops and comparing notes with their new Q friends.
It kind of creates this community effect among believers. And that's why the pandemic was so key, is because people were stuck at home. They couldn't meet people. So they were on Facebook meeting in all these groups of like-minded people, and they felt, oh, QAnon is this community, and they all solved the clues together, and, you know, they're in on a secret that no one else knows about.
Q was making big promises. There was a storm coming. And what did that mean? Well, it was believed that the storm was going to be a day of mass arrests of a cabal of global elites that had been, wait for it, running a global child sex trafficking ring because they were all Satanists. Ah, there it is. Yes, the global elites, the rich progressives, the Hollywood set, bankers and billionaires, all Satanists that kill children and eat them. And when you know it, one of their clubhouses was hiding in plain sight. A pizza place in Washington, D.C. called Comet Ping Pong was targeted, and claims were made that the building's basement was the location of unspeakable crimes against children, all at the hands of the Clintons, or the Obamas, or George Soros, probably Soros. And how did Comet Ping Pong wind up on the receiving end? Briefly, it was during the investigation into former Congressman Anthony Weiner that, allegedly, the NYPD found evidence in Weiner's emails that this child sex trafficking ring was real and that Comet Ping Pong was a safe house. But it was all in code. A normal person reading the emails wouldn't be able to figure it out. You had to know what you were looking for. And the conspiracy exploded online, with dozens of influential media figures from the far right giving it way more oxygen than it deserved. InfoWars with Alex Jones, of course, reported on it as if it were a true story, as did other right-wing conspiracy sites. Then we had professional athletes and writers, activists, even the foreign press got involved. It was a madhouse. They all believed it because they were told it was true, even though no one bothered to actually look into it. And as you could have predicted, things got ugly. At first, it was simple harassment of employees and patrons of Comet Ping Pong. But then, on December 4th, 2016, a man named Edgar Welch showed up with an AR-15 and started shooting. He claimed he was there to, quote, self-investigate what was going on in the basement. He was there to save the children. Even after his arrest and conviction, Welch couldn't be convinced that it was all a baseless conspiracy. Even after he learned there wasn't even a basement at Comet Ping Pong. It was all made up. And this preceded the first Q drop by a year. But this Pizzagate story aligns with the Michelle Smith, Dr. Pazder story of the early 1980s. It was the spark that led to the wildfire. The book, Michelle Remembers, gained international audiences that convinced millions that Satanists were out there preying on our children. The Pizzagate scandal, likewise, gained an international following that suggested the same terrifying reality. The most vulnerable among us were being abused for the enjoyment of a secret group of devil-worshipping cannibals. The only difference between the two was technology. It took almost 5 years from the publication of Michelle Remembers to the next major event in the history of the Satanic Panic, the McMartin preschool case. With Pizzagate, the panic took hold not in 5 years, but thanks to the internet, in 5 days. And when, less than a year later, Q made their first drop, the environment was already primed to welcome a grand, aggressive, completely outlandish conspiracy theory that spoke to a large swath of society that was desperate for a reason to believe that something nefarious was going on and that they could be warriors on the front lines. And while there was no singular figure that represented the fight against evil during the heyday of the Satanic Panic, With the QAnon movement, they had their godhead, Donald Trump.
During the pandemic, the QAnon movement appears to be gaining a lot of followers. Can you talk about what you think about that and what you have to say to people who are following this movement right now?
Well, I don't know much about the movement other than I understand they like me very much, which I appreciate. And I've heard these are people that love our country and they just don't like seeing it. So I don't know really anything about it other than they do supposedly like me.
Just real quick, at the crux of the theory is this belief that you are secretly saving the world from this satanic cult of pedophiles and cannibals. Does that sound like something you are behind?
Well, I haven't heard that, but is that supposed to be a bad thing or a good thing? I mean, if I can help save the world from problems, I'm willing to do it. I'm willing to put myself out there. And we are, actually. We're saving the world from a radical left philosophy that will destroy this country. And when this country is gone, the rest of the world would follow.
Now, Trump, as far as I know, never really vouched for the movement apart from gushing over them seeming to, quote, like him very much. But let's be honest, regardless of your political stripe, Mr. Trump has a very hard time finding a harsh word for someone who expresses admiration for him, regardless of the terrible deeds they may have done. To be fair, Trump seems an unwilling participant in all the Q nonsense, but he must see some political upside to allowing it to continue because he hasn't disavowed their work, which, in this strange conspiracy world, is construed as approval and vindication. Where things got interesting for me was all of the glaringly obvious similarities that, again, admittedly, didn't resonate until I really thought about it. For example, the most direct parallels between the Satanic Panic and QAnon is the belief in hidden, malevolent forces operating in secret to destroy the fabric of society. In both movements, these forces are depicted as highly organized and deeply entrenched in societal institutions. In the case of the Satanic Panic, the fear was that the satanic cults were performing ritualistic abuses, whereas QAnon's narrative suggests that a cabal of global elites is engaging in child trafficking, pedophilia, and satanic worship. QAnon builds on the fears cultivated during the Satanic Panic by reintroducing the idea of child exploitation and linking it with a modern political context. As mentioned, the Pizzagate narrative closely aligns with the paralyzing fears parents felt during the wave of preschool allegations in the 1980s. And then you have the religious and apocalyptic undertones. Both the Satanic Panic and QAnon are deeply embedded within religious and apocalyptic worldviews, particularly those associated with conservative Christianity. During the Satanic Panic, evangelical leaders played a significant role in stoking fears of satanic infiltration, often framing the issue as a spiritual battle between good and evil. This theme of a cosmic struggle is central to the QAnon movement as well. In QAnon, the political world is viewed as a battlefield, and Donald Trump is portrayed as a messianic figure fighting against a satanic cabal of pedophiles and globalists. QAnon adherents often describe themselves as, quote, digital soldiers engaged in a spiritual war. Religious language and symbolism permeate both movements. In QAnon, the cryptic postings by Q are often interpreted in biblical terms, with followers seeking out hidden meanings akin to decoding prophetic texts. Similarly, the Satanic Panic was underpinned by apocalyptic beliefs that Satan's forces were preparing to usher in a new, dark age, and that only the faithful could resist this impending doom. This religious framework amplifies the sense of urgency and righteousness among followers, encouraging them to take extreme measures in defense of their beliefs. And in both movements, on the surface, it's all about the children. A recurring feature of both the Satanic Panic and QAnon is the moral panic surrounding the endangerment of children. In both cases, the fear of child abuse and exploitation serves as a powerful emotional hook, galvanizing a wide swath of the population to take action. The protection of children, seen as the most innocent and vulnerable members of society, becomes a rallying cry that justifies otherwise outlandish and extreme claims. During the Satanic Panic, parents were terrified by the idea that their children could be subjected to ritualistic abuse by trusted authority figures like teachers and daycare workers. In QAnon, a similar narrative plays out with the belief that political elites and Hollywood celebrities, people we've known and have felt like have been our friends and we've let into our living rooms on our TV screens for our entire lives, are involved in child trafficking and abuse. This sense of urgency to protect children from unseen forces is a central theme in both movements, and it has the effect of making their adherents more willing to believe in conspiracy theories, even when they have been presented with no evidence at all. And eventually, it all becomes about trust in our legacy institutions. Both the Satanic Panic and QAnon movements thrive on a deep distrust of established institutions, whether governmental, legal, or media-related. Whether they're preschools that have been around for generations, government institutions, or legacy media corporations. During the Satanic Panic, distrust was often aimed at educational and childcare institutions, which were viewed as potential breeding grounds for satanic activity. There was also a growing skepticism towards law enforcement and the legal system, especially as high-profile cases like the McMartin trial ended in acquittals, despite it being the longest and most expensive trial in American history, and despite the widespread belief in the guilt of the accused. In QAnon, this distrust of institutions has expanded to encompass the entire political and media establishment. Think about it. QAnon followers believe that mainstream media outlets are complicit in covering up the truth about the satanic cabal that supposedly controls the world. They also view the political system, particularly the Democratic Party, as being infiltrated by evil actors who must be exposed, defeated, and executed. This erosion of trust in traditional sources of authority creates a fertile environment for conspiracy theories to flourish, as people seek alternative explanations for their dissatisfaction with societal institutions. As mentioned earlier, one of the biggest differences between the Satanic Panic and the QAnon movement has to do with technology. The Satanic Panic occurred before the information age, so it took longer to grow roots and really spread its message. But when it did finally reach a potential convert, it would then seem organic and, I guess, more true. Otherwise, how could it have managed to build such a powerful following? Conversely, with QAnon, it spread so quickly due to the awesome power of the World Wide Web that many see through it as, a mile wide but a millimeter deep. Not much there, so they'd move on. The true believers would catch on no matter what, so very quickly there was amassed a considerable army of so-called digital soldiers. But still, we can blame the media for playing a crucial role in amplifying both the Satanic Panic and QAnon. In the 1980s, sensationalist television programs, tabloid newspapers, and talk shows helped spread the fear of satanic cults. We discussed shows like Geraldo and Oprah in an earlier episode, and how they featured, quote, survivors of satanic abuse who shared harrowing stories, often with no corroborating evidence. This media amplification created a feedback loop in which the more sensational the claims, the more media attention they received, thereby reinforcing public fear and belief in the conspiracy. QAnon, although operating in such a vastly different media landscape, follows a similar pattern of amplification. The rise of the internet and social media platforms like Twitter, Facebook, 8chan, 4chan, They all provided QAnon with fertile ground to spread its message. Like the Satanic Panic, QAnon thrives on sensationalism, with followers sharing cryptic Q drops and interpreting them in ways that further the conspiracy. But perhaps the most crucial difference between the media of the 80s and the media of today is this. The decentralized nature of online platforms allowed QAnon to bypass our traditional gatekeepers of information, making it more difficult to challenge or debunk the movement's claims. The media response to QAnon and the Satanic Panic also bears similarities. In both cases, attempts to debunk the conspiracies were met with fierce resistance from believers, who viewed any arguments only as further proof of the conspiracy. And just as the Satanic Panic's adherents believed that law enforcement and the legal system were part of the problem, QAnon followers believe that the media is complicit in covering up the truth about the global elite's alleged activities. The more the claims are challenged, the deeper the belief goes for the zealots. The Satanic Panic's influence on QAnon can be seen in how both movements capitalize on societal fears of corruption, exploitation, and the loss of control. The fear of child abuse and the need to protect children from unseen forces continue to be powerful motivators for conspiracy thinking. Additionally, both movements demonstrate how moral panics can be weaponized to advance political and social agendas. For the Satanic Panic, this involved promoting a conservative Christian moral agenda that sought to rein in perceived cultural excesses like heavy metal music and early role-playing video games. QAnon, meanwhile, has been used as a political tool to galvanize a segment of the American electorate around the idea that they are fighting an existential battle for the future of the nation.
I will die for my country and my family and my friends.
And they ain't gonna win.
There ain't nothing else.
They ain't gonna
you
win.
don't want none of this.
The persistence of these themes suggests that the Satanic Panic did not simply fade into history, but has left a lasting imprint on American culture. The ability of QAnon to tap into similar fears shows that the conditions that gave rise to the Satanic Panic, widespread distrust of institutions, fear of moral decay, and the allure of simplistic explanations for complex problems, those conditions remain potent forces in society. So the more you think about it, the more obvious it becomes. It's almost like a cookie-cutter conspiracy. Ride the wave, let a few generations pass by, then roll out the same old tropes, slap a new coat of paint on it, tweak a few of the levers, and boom, we have ourselves a political movement capable of ruining lives and toppling governments. Yes, the Satanic Panic of the 1980s and early 90s laid the groundwork for the rise of QAnon by normalizing the idea of hidden, malevolent forces threatening society from within. Both movements prey on fears of child exploitation, promote distrust of established institutions, and are amplified by sensationalist media coverage. And just like every single facet of the Satanic Panic was thoroughly debunked over the decades that followed, so too will we look back on QAnon with an embarrassing shaking of our collective heads and a melancholy sigh. How could we as a species have been so gullible? Thanks for listening. Please make sure you're following The Devil Within wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. You can also check out our socials at The Devil Within Pod on Instagram, Facebook, and now full episodes on YouTube. Until next time, stay safe out there. The Devil Within is an EVO production, recorded live at Bel Air Studios in Los Angeles, California. Written and produced by Brandon Morgan, executive produced by Danny Abelson. For The Devil Within, I'm your host, Brandon Morgan.